Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary Orchard and I, Mikah Sargent, go on a great adventure with iOS. That'll make sense soon. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today with Rosemary Orchard and Mikah Sargent, episode 699, recorded Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, for Thursday, April 18th, 2024. Great adventures with iOS. Welcome back to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePodOS, iPadOS, VisionOS, and all the OSs in between. This is the show where we help you make the most of those iOS and other devices that you have from Apple by talking about the software that runs on them, the settings you can change, the features you have at your fingertips, and everything in between. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard. I am not wearing my hiking boots right now, Mikah. I'm still wearing, I have to say, my fuzzy slippers because it may have switched over to summertime here in the UK, but it's a little bit chilly. But you know what? It's on my packing list, ready for when I go outside. So I think I'll be okay, I hope.
Yeah, we thought that it would be a great time to talk about, getting out into the wilderness for many of us. Now's the time to make that happen. And so we thought we'd talk about some different apps that are available to help you, get out there and explore the world. Without further ado, let's get started with AllTrails. It is a very popular app for helping you find different trails nearby. And what's great about AllTrails is that it kind of, there are some apps where they try to do so many different things. And so it's a hiking app and it's a fitness tracker and it's this and it's that. I love that when you open up AllTrails, the first thing that you're doing is you're exploring. You're trying to find those trails. And you can use things like how far away a trail is from you. So you can say, I only want trails that are 0 to 40 miles away. The type of activity that I want to do, I want to be able to hike, but maybe I also want to be able to do some off-road driving or some camping there. It will let you sort these trails to find out the ones that offer that. The difficulty of the trail, based on kind of considerations that AllTrails has put into place. So distance, elevation, gain, and terrain are what are used to determine if a trail is easy or more difficult. So I think it's easy, moderate, and a hard trail. So it says an easy trail is a long, flat trail. A hard trail could have a significant amount of elevation gain and be long in distance or have some sort of terrain component that makes it challenging. And then, of course, moderate is somewhere in between those. And then the length of the trail, so how long you plan on going, the suitability based on whether it's dog-friendly, kid-friendly, if it's wheelchair-friendly, stroller-friendly, if it's paved or partially paved. And then there are some more filters that you have too, including, what are the trails that are most popular in my area? What are some attractions that it might have? Maybe I want to make sure I can see wildflowers while I'm looking for my trail. Or if it is for me, love a loop trail. I think it's very important to have a loop trail. Out and back trails can be kind of annoying if you're not expecting it to be an out and back trail. For people who don't hike often, out and back trail is where you hike out and then you hike back along the same trail that you went on. The loop, of course, takes you out and then you continue on the trail and come back. So it's more of a circle. It's a loop leading you back to where you are. So the Tomales Point Trail, which is at Point Reyes National Seashore, is a moderate trail. And it has a really good rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars. The trail length is 9.5 miles, elevation gain of 1,200 feet, takes about 4 hours average. It is an out and back trail, but you can get some information about it, including the fact that it offers that horseback riding is allowed there, that you can see wildflowers. You're not allowed to bring dogs, so that's something to be mindful of. But as people post photos, you can see what people have seen on the trail. So there's lots of wildlife, some succulents are appearing, great shots of the ocean, as well as lots of options to look at wildflowers. And from here, I love that I'm able to download this trail to save it locally. So if I'm outside of service area, which is very common, I can still use the trail, and I can see what the trail looks like in terms of where you start as you hike out to this point, and then of course you hike back, and there are different views, including a 3D view. Now, those features are part of AllTrails Plus, which comes in at $36 a year. So if you're a big hiker, if you're hiking regularly, that might be something that you consider using, so that you can kind of not just conceptually see the trail, but even better see the trail in terms of how you are hiking up, down, around. I know that's important to me as a person who has a history of taking a wrong turn on a trail and getting a little lost. I used to say it's not hiking unless you get lost, but I've gotten a lot better about it. So I can't say that anymore because I want to say that I've gone hiking. It also talks about things like the weather along the trail. That is, again, a plus feature. So it will say, depending on the elevation of the trail, it might be very cool if we're up here, might be warmer down here, etc. The ground conditions, including if things will be wet or icy. And, ooh, do I love it, mosquito activity. So you can kind of know, okay, if I'm going here, I need to get some DEET spray before I take off into this trail to make sure that I am protected from those little blood-sucking pests and also the mosquitoes. I was thinking of children. No, I'm kidding. So let's move along, because that is AllTrails. It is available to download for free. It has an in-app purchase that will allow you to gain access to some of those more powerful features. Rosemary, are you ready to tell us about your app?
Yes, I am, Mikah. And my app is a very exciting app. It is the Ordnance Survey map app. So Ordnance Survey is Great Britain's national mapping agency over here. So they do all of our official surveys, and they are the ones that provide the geographic data that the government uses, among other things. And so their data tends to be pretty spot on. Over here, we also have public rights of way over even private land, even land that potentially has farm animals grazing in it. You are at your own risk if you go through a herd of cows, especially if you separate mama and baby. Don't do that, folks. But there are plenty of trails that you can find through the OS Maps app, which is free to download and to use. Now, there is a premium subscription which lets you do things like download the maps offline. But what you can do is you can create your own routes. You can also bookmark routes, and you can record activity. And you can also see topographical maps if you use the premium feature. So if you're just using the regular plan, which is free, then it's a standard or an aerial map. And you can also toggle on showing national cycle routes, which I should note, nothing's changed on this because I've picked quite a remote village that's not exactly in the world's most populated area. On the homepage, there's some popular routes near you, which are geographically located, and then there's some popular routes, and they change out where this is. So it's in the Cairngorms at the moment. And there's also some learning options as well, which is quite nice. Now, I actually have popped over to the routes view, and there's a number of filters here. So much like AllTrails, I can filter for hiking, running, off-road, on-road, that's cycling, horse riding, paddleboarding, and then there's other as well. And I can also filter for difficulty levels. There's length, and this is done by distance, but if I switch it to time, then I can say, hey, I'm ready to go from 0 hours to 10 hours. There's also a rating, and then I can also filter for route types, so circular and point-to-point. And I can see here that there are 3 routes. Now, if I remove the recommended only, and turn that off, you can see that I have literally hundreds of trails available here. There's 45 starting from one point right there, which if I tap on it, it pops up a list. There's 13 starting from this other point over here. And I have to say, so British. Castlecombe to the White Hart pub at Ford. Of course, there's a pub involved on this particular route, which, that's typically British. So, I'm not going to complain. But there are a few things that you can do. Obviously, you can view your map legends at any point, and you can change what kind of map it is that you're looking at. You can choose whether or not to show the compass, and I've toggled on showing waypoints on the screen. And also, if I pop over into saved, then I can see a couple of routes that I've saved. So the AA, not Alcoholics Anonymous, the Automobile Association, have published one route which I've saved, and then there's another one from Country Walking, and then there's just the Castlecombe Beach Woodland Loop that I have saved. But if I pop back into the home area and then tap on settings, then this gets a little bit fancy and nerdy, which is one of the reasons why I love it. So units of measurement, obviously you've got miles and feet or kilometers and meters, but then you can change your activity speed. So if you know what your hiking speed is, your running speed, your off-road cycling speed, your on-road cycling speed, your horse riding speed, and your paddle sports speed, as well as your other speeds are, you can change those. Okay, and it's worked out based on Naismith's rule, which is linked. So you can actually tap on that and it pops up the Wikipedia page that tells you how to calculate this. So they've popped in some defaults, but if I know that I tend to hike a little bit faster than most people, I tend to hike at 5 kilometers per hour, then that goes back into when I am looking for routes and I filter. And if I filter for time, and if I filter for something that's less than, I'm going to have to bring this down because it's still got over 100. There we go. Things less than an hour, then that's less than an hour based on my hiking speed. Okay, that's not based on the, the previous number. So that's very cool. Then, of course, there's options to show waypoints on routes, show offline areas on the map, showing the compass, and you can also customize it a little bit. So your activity line style and route line styling. So if you're doing a route or one of the paths, then you can see that. And then there is also an option, which I found earlier, for auto recording your activity. So if I am going on a walk, okay, then I can get notifications when I'm off course, when I'm close to key waypoints. There's also some notifications to tell you when a map's downloaded or to get you restart activity recording when movement is detected. But if I were to pick one of these and then pop in and start the route, I can't start it because I'm not over in Castlecombe right now. But if I were to start it, then it would actually start recording that. So I can log all of these walks that I go on. And I personally think that that is a wonderful feature. And the fact that this app is free and available to everybody, if you're going to come over here to the UK for a visit, definitely give this app a go because, why not? Why wouldn't you?
Lovely. The app that I'm going to talk about next is perhaps not something that you would necessarily expect, but I thought about how you'll be going outside, right? And you may be hiking, you may be biking, you may be paddleboarding, and you may run into something happening. And what do you do when you're in a situation and something bad happens? Well, you may want to have an app that has information about first aid. So I thought I'd mention the first aid app from the American Red Cross. This is an app that's available completely for free from the American Red Cross, and it has lots of built-in information. So what you are presented with in the first case is the first aid section. And within the first aid section, you kind of have categories: allergic reactions, an asthma attack, bites and stings, bleeding, burns, cardiac arrest, choking, cold-related illness, concussions, dehydration, the list goes on. And so maybe you're out and you suffer a bite or a sting. and you were on a trail and you saw a furry little creature that you thought was a cat. And so you went up to it to pet the cat, and it wasn't a cat. It was a badger. And you got bit by a badger. So I would choose animal bite. And I would take a look at what it says here. So it says, first, check the scene for safety. So check for more badgers coming to bite you. Form an initial impression, obtain consent, and put on PPE as appropriate. So this is for someone who is doing the first aid to another person. You kind of got to keep this in your mind that maybe you're doing this for yourself. So let's think of it from that aspect. So for me, I'm going to give myself consent to treat myself and to check for signs and symptoms, including open, deep, or extensive wound. Is it a puncture wound? Is the blood volume equal to about half a can of soda? Is the blood flowing continuously? Is the bite from a stray or a wild animal? In this case, from a wild animal. Is there bruising? Is there a break in the skin? And then it does say, call 911 and get equipment if the person requires immediate emergency medical care treatment. So let's see what it says for giving care, because in this case, we are going to provide care until we're able to get help from a professional. So we would choose general care and kind of learn about what we can do here. So if it has not caused life-threatening bleeding, then you can do certain things. But if it's broken through the skin, and has a minor wound, then you need to clean it. You keep them from getting cold or overheated, and then you can kind of learn more about what you do with a minor wound. So direct pressure to stop any of the bleeding, clean the wound with soap and water if you have it, flush the wound by running it under clear water, apply antibiotic ointment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one example. But maybe you're out and about and you are faced with someone who faints. And so in this case, you can kind of learn what may be the reasons why they fainted. Do they have pale skin? Are they sweating? Do they just need to sit down? What you do if the person is breathing or isn't breathing. All of this information is built into this app and is available for you offline, which is very important. And then from there, what's great about this app is that it has some other stuff, including quizzes. So you can kind of see how much of the skill you have that's just, once you start to read about this, it's built in. There's training as well. So it talks about different training classes that you can take both online and in person so that you can learn about providing just first aid in general, if there's CPR. And you know what? Honestly, this might be something that I consider doing because this is pretty cool. There's a babysitting basics class. But no, I do think this is pretty cool that you can kind of learn for a small fee what you need to do. And look, there's a cat and dog first aid class as well. All of that is available and of course goes to the American Red Cross. And then last but not least, you can kind of create your own little profile there that has, if you have signed up for the Learning Center account, then you can log into that. But the most important aspect of this, I feel, is that first section, the first aid section that has so much information. And you could also quickly type in something, including a symptom. So swelling, for example, and see what different things pop up. Oh, yes, they did have a burn, and that is what's probably causing the swelling, for example. Rosemary, what's next on your list?
Well, next on my list is one that, it may be a little niche in some ways, but do you ever want maps offline? So you don't necessarily have to be online to use it because your GPS location, that works offline. Okay, the GPS built into your phone, that can triangulate where you are even if you don't have the internet. But having a map that's available offline, especially if, say, you're doing something like visiting New York City, or in my case, I am hoping to go to Taiwan later this year, specifically Taipei, maybe having public transport information and walking directions offline could be pretty good. So I don't have to worry about making sure that I have a data roaming plan and potentially paying a huge amount of money for it. So for this, I use Guru Maps. That's GURU Maps. It's Guru Maps and offline navigation offline, and they have lots of maps built in. So at the moment, I am looking at Taiwan, and I was somewhat zoomed in towards Taipei here. And I can see this. And this is pretty cool because guess what? I've checked. I have tested multiple times. This works on a plane. Oh, yes, folks, it really does. But what I can do in Guru Maps is I can either navigate to somewhere and then it will pop up. So maybe if I navigate out of Taiwan and I pop over to the Okinawa prefecture, then I see a little option that allows me to download the Kyushu region in Japan. But I can also pop into the settings and I can choose to download maps. And there is, so to start with, it's sourced by nearest, and that's based on where you've navigated to geographically on the map rather than your physical location. And you can see there's, whole loads of places here. And then you can also pop over to the A to Z. So now I can actually type in, and if, for example, I type in New York, it will actually pop up the United States. Now, and then it filters down to New York for me, but I can also see if I undo my search, there's options to download everything from Alabama to Wyoming. Yes, alphabetically, including the United States minor outlying islands and the United States Virgin Islands. There's also a download all button. Now, I would caution folks against using a download all button because this can be pretty hefty. I have downloaded Taiwan in preparation for the hopeful upcoming trip, and this is nearly 600 megabytes, okay? And I can see that 250-ish is the map, and 329 megabytes is the navigation data to help me actually get around, so that, once I'm there, I can get from A to B. There are also map objects that you can choose to show. So, for example, if you wanted to see beauty salons and hairdressers, you can turn those on. And if you want pistes and ski lifts, you can have those, or you can turn those off so that they don't pop up and appear on your screen. There's also the option to see or to change the color for tracks and markers. So tracks are the actual places or routes that you've traveled on, and markers are the pins that you have added to your map, and plenty more things as well. Now, the map source is where it can get really interesting because you can have overlays for contour lines, hill shades, the open sea map, and slopes. And your offline maps you can choose, and this is an either or, it's city, cycling, or hiking. So you can choose to have city offline maps, cycling offline maps, or hiking offline maps. And then your online maps, there's a choice. And under the free options, there's OpenStreetMap, USGS Satellite Plus, and USGS Topographic. And that's the United States Geological Survey, I believe. And there's also Wikimapia. And if you pay for Guru Maps Premium or Guru Maps Pro, Open Bus Map is also free, then you can get for example, there is a landscape map that you can get, and that's $17.99 a year, $199 a month, which is great if you're traveling, or £69, but I believe that's a 1-to-1 ratio with dollars at the moment, for a lifetime subscription. But what for me is very, very cool about this is Guru Maps works in CarPlay. So if you are traveling somewhere and you know that you're going to need to use your phone as a GPS, then you can download maps with Guru Maps offline, and then something happens, you don't have data or whatever, you can use Guru Maps. And if you've got a car with CarPlay, Guru Maps will work in CarPlay as well. It's one of the apps that appears on screen there, which is just incredibly useful. So yeah, there's options that you can do. So you can record your travels and walking about. So if you're going on a cycle ride, a hike, paddleboarding excursion, kayaking down the Grand Canyon, that seems like a dangerous idea. Maybe don't do that. Then you can record all of that and actually, see that information later. Obviously, there's also search built in, so I can see previously I've searched for this hotel, which was the DoubleTree by Hilton on Times Square, New York, which it is in the map still. It's just taking a moment to show up because I'm also sharing my screen. But this is just incredibly useful, and one of those apps that I always keep installed. And every so often I pop in, I clean up the old downloaded map data, and I download some new stuff so that I have things offline. Because you know what? The internet is not always a guarantee, especially if you're going off the grid. And the fact that, I can make sure that I'm definitely going to have transit directions, walking directions, and driving directions from A to B in a region is very important to me.
All right. My next app is another one that I think is kind of, it's a preparatory app. It is making sure that you are good to go when it comes to being outside and, hiking around, biking around, doing whatever you are doing. And so this app is called My Pollen Forecast Pro. And it is one of my favorite apps because anytime I am feeling a little allergic, I will pull out this app and take a look at what the pollen forecast is in my area. So you pop in your area and it will show you different places where the pollen, what the pollen levels are in that area. So right now where we are, the pollen count is medium to high. And you can kind of scroll across the United States here and see what it looks like in different places. So back where I'm from, just north of Kansas City in this place called St. Joseph, Missouri, the pollen forecast is actually lower than it is right now in California. And so over here where we are, I can see that the pollen count is high, and I can look at the forecast, which tells me a little bit about what pollen specifically is in the air. So today we're looking at oak, mulberry, and different grasses, and it will kind of give you information about what you might be experiencing. And what I love about this is, depending on what the day is and how you're feeling, you can kind of start to track what might be an allergic trigger for you. So I happen to have just completed a full panel allergy test thing where they use your blood and they sort of add different stuff to it and see how your blood reacts to the different stuff to get a full profile of what you're allergic to. But because of this app, I knew a lot of these already, and it lined up with the tests that I had done just recently, showing me that indeed, I was allergic to this tree and this kind of grass. But that's why there's this diary entry, so that you can see which trees you might be allergic to. So on a specific day, you can provide, diary information to say, let's go for today, for example. I can say that, I've got high symptoms today. And then over time, it starts to track, okay, well, on April 10th, oh, how funny that just a few years ago, I was using this specific version of the app for elm, ash, and oak. And now I've got oak, mulberry, and grasses. So, we might see some draws between oak and oak there, right? And then again, you can kind of keep track of this over time. And it's great because it also has an Apple Watch companion that will also provide pollen information as well. So you can kind of prepare yourself for what the pollen is going to be over the coming days and know for sure if you need to particularly douse yourself in allergy medication or not. This app is available in the App Store for $3.99. And it also offers in-app purchases. If I'm not mistaken, there is a version of this app just called My Pollen Forecast. That's the kind of free version of the app that doesn't have as many features, but My Pollen Forecast Pro, well worth the $3.99 one-time purchase to keep track of what's going on in the area in terms of the pollens. So yeah, if you're going to go out and adventure and you've got allergies, you need to know what's going on out there and whether you need to prepare yourself. All right, Rosemary, what is your next app?
Well, I'm just going to throw in a little bonus mention of if you're going outside and you're going to be outside for an extended period of time, make sure to download the official weather app for whatever region or country you're currently in, because it can probably send you notifications if there's severe weather coming in, which may completely and utterly destroy your plans. And the Met Office is the official one over here in the UK. And it turns out they also have a pollen forecast built in, which I can view for today. And I can see that the current pollens are oak, ash, plane, with birch in decline, and there's some grass-borne pollen, which is Pleospora spores. So basically, the planet is trying to kill me around here, but that's not exactly new information. So there we go. And speaking of regional apps, I would highly recommend that if you're in the UK, that you download and try the National Trust app. And the National Trust, they own a whole bunch of old stately homes here in the UK, big, large properties that potentially famous people used to live in. And they look after them, and then they will let you pay to go visit them. And you can also pay for a membership, and they have events on. So I can see, for example, this coming Saturday nearby, there is a free event from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Share the joy of blossom. That seems lovely, assuming the blossom is not trying to kill me. But you know what? I can take my allergy medication beforehand. There is a blossom ID sheet available from the visitor reception. And so if I pop over to Laycock, then I can actually go and enjoy this. And, there's obviously a whole bunch of different places that I could go see through the National Trust app and things that I can find out about through here. But I know that not all of you are in the UK. The National Trust doesn't exist everywhere, but I'm sure there are similar things in your country or state which are, available. They may only have a website, but don't forget, you can use the share button and add that to your home screen. Yes, folks, even in the EU, you can still do that. There's plenty of events going on that you can find out about, and then you can, go see some cool new places, get outside and enjoy some sunshine if you can. And if not, at the very least, maybe you can learn about some of these places so that if you've got friends or family who come to visit later, then you can give them a list of recommendations.
Beautiful. Alrighty, folks, I can hear the music. It's time for Shortcuts Corner. This, of course, is the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, our shortcuts expert, provides a response. The first Shortcuts Corner request comes in from Ron, who writes, "Hi, I'm hoping that Rosemary could help me with a shortcut. I use earbuds while I go to sleep with the volume turned appropriately down. That works fine. Problem is, sometimes I want to use an alarm to wake up in the morning. The volume is just as low, and if an earbud falls out, I might not hear the alarm. I'd like to have a shortcut or shortcuts to 1, turn on the alarm at a given time, but at a higher volume that I select so that I wake up, and or 2, switch the audio output so that the alarm plays through the iPhone speaker at a very high volume so that I wake up. Bonus points would be if I could select a particular song to wake me up. Probably these would be School Days from Chuck Berry or Wake Up Little Susie, Every Brothers. I have both on my iPhone. Thanks for your help. I enjoy your show and at least a half dozen other Twit programs and enjoy being a member of Twit." Ron, thank you for your support. I'm curious to hear what your solution here is, Rosemary. I have to say, I am a person who uses AirPods almost every night to fall asleep to audiobooks. And I don't know if it's just because they're AirPods, so Apple has better integration or what, but my alarm still rings from my iPhone, even though I have AirPods. It may be that I wake up in the middle of the night and put my AirPods away or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think of why for me it works that the alarm goes off from the phone, but Ron is having trouble getting the alarm to go off on the phone, because it seemed like Apple was wise about making the alarm play out on the device as well. Anyway, curious to hear your Shortcuts Corner response.
Well, there's a couple of things that I'm going to talk about. So first of all, in the clock app in settings, in the clock app on your iPhone, not in shortcuts, not in settings, clock. If you go to the alarms tab, I would like Ron to double check if he's using the sleep alarm. Because if he's not using the sleep alarm, this could also play in with a difference. Because I have found if I'm wearing headphones and my alarm goes off, any one of these, random ones down here, then I will get it ringing in my headphones. And if it's the sleep alarm, then it will play out loud. So that is a very good starting point because, and the reason why I thought of this or realized this is because in preparation for this, I had a little look and I was looking into the sound options, and you can pick sounds for alarms, but you can't pick sounds for your sleep alarm that include a song. So I've got Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves here, which is, one of my favorite songs. I tend not to use a song as my alarm because it either makes me hate the alarm very, very quickly and therefore hate the song, or I just become immune to it somehow. So I find one of these ringtones or similar is better. But either way, and also by the way, folks, you can change your haptics in here as well. So you can change the way that it vibrates. And even make new custom vibrations. So you can pick like staccato, which is just like zzz, zzz, which is one of the things I prefer to do. And so if you've got an alarm, not your sleep alarm that you're using, and maybe it repeats every day. I'm not going to set that up now because otherwise I will definitely have regrets later. But I'm going to set that to a minute in the past, and I'm going to call this test alarm. Okay, so say you were using this same alarm every single day. There are actually a few things that you could do in shortcuts. So under shortcuts and automations, you can say alarms, and you can actually do this for when any alarm goes off, specifically for when your wake up alarm or any existing alarm. And you can choose this for goes off, is stopped, or is snoozed. So obviously in Ron's case, we're going to want this for an alarm going off. And I'm going to select an existing alarm, and I'm going to use my test alarm for this. And you'll make sure you want to run this immediately. You don't want to run this after a confirmation. And then you can, in here, you could create a new shortcut, and you can do things like set your volume to 50%, 100%. Don't deafen yourself, please. Now, the thing that I have struggled a little bit to work with in my testing is whether or not the alarm going off counts as a media volume or if it is a ringtone volume. Because it's when you select a sound for your alarm, it's called a ringtone. But when I was messing with this earlier, it was a little unclear to me which one this was. So you may need to experiment with that a little bit. But if you set your volume to 100%, and tell you what, if we duplicate this action by tapping on the little icon in the top left, I can just set the ringtone to 100% as well. Might actually just bring that back down to like 50% just so that I don't give myself a heart attack the next time my phone goes off, because otherwise that is definitely going to happen. So you can set those alarms to that. You can also set your audio to actually play to a HomePod. That is the word that I am thinking of. But this is a little bit difficult because you're not actually playing music here. That's the trick. Music is not being played. So one of the things that I actually thought of is, assuming that Ron doesn't want to switch to a sleep alarm, which I would personally recommend he does, because I think that would be the correct solution. What I would do is make sure you always use the same alarm, or you could change this automation for when any alarm goes off and run this immediately. What you could do is you could play some music on your HomePod when an alarm goes off. So what I am going to do is I'm going to select music, okay, and I am going to type in, if I can, School Days by Chuck Berry. Bingo. So I found one of Ron's tracks here that he wanted. You could select a playlist here. You could do whatever it is you like. And then I am going to search for playback as an action. And now there's two options here. I can either hand off playback. So I can say, pass this from my phone and make the HomePod be in charge of it, or I can leave it on my phone. And I am going to select my bedroom HomePods by using the set playback destination. Okay, so there's also, if you tap on set, you can also add a playback destination, so you can have it play in like multiple places at once. Like if you want to play it on 4 different speakers,
the whole house.
Go for it. If you have people who live with you, that may not be the most friend-making activity you could choose. But either way, I'm going to let you choose what it is that you want to do. But you could just have, when any alarm goes off, play, whatever song it is that you want on the speakers in your bedroom, assuming that you are asleep in there. Now, you may want to do something like check if you're at home first, like by checking your Wi-Fi or something like that. But that is probably what I would do. So my preference is switch to the sleep alarm. And switching to the sleep alarm doesn't work for some reason for you, then I would go for creating a shortcuts automation for when an alarm turns off. So it can either be a very specific existing alarm, or it could just be when any alarm goes off, and then, play some music through your speaker. And then, ta-da, you should have 2 alarms at the same time. So that's my preference, because that way you are able to turn it off on your phone, but turning it off on your phone doesn't kill the music playing back from your HomePod.
Nice. All right. So, Ron, there you go. And yeah, I love that because I thought, what is it that's different about mine? And you're so right. It's my sleep alarm. The next Shortcuts Corner request comes in from Steve. Steve writes, my partner and I care for an elder with moderate dementia and declining mobility. We have been using a baby cam to keep an eye on her during the day to make sure we run downstairs to help her move around. We are looking for a bedtime solution where we can get some sleep but still be notified if she tries to leave the bed or her room. I have vibration, motion, and door sensors in and around her room, but I'm having trouble figuring out how to minimize the interruptions to just what we need to know, and most important, when we need to know. I am trying to find a way to turn on certain notifications from specific sensors during bedtime when we turn on our sleep focus mode, or using some sort of virtual switch to turn on or off notifications for a group of sensors and time we want. Ideally, we would like to turn on these notifications for ourselves on our iPhones with a toggle, but we would be fine with both our phones being set to the same state for these notifications. I know how to create virtual switches, but figuring out the rest with focus mode, shortcuts, and switches is confusing. Any suggestions? Thanks, Steve. This is a complicated one, which is why we ask Rosemary Orchard for help, because I imagine there's some logic stuff involved that we've got to figure out to get this working as we would hope.
Yes, it is a little tricky, but the good news is you can almost have exactly what you want, Steve. Now, I say almost because you can't tie this into a focus mode and only have it come through at bedtime. You're going to need to pick some kind of time window and just leave it like that. But in the Home app, we're not going into shortcuts. We're not going anywhere else. We're going to start in the Home app. Go into one of the rooms in the Home app that has these sensors. So I have picked my living room for this, and I am tapping on my living room occupied sensor. Now, I can do this for a variety of sensors, including motion. So I can pick, for example, the lounge sensor rather than the camera sensor. And then there should be an option somewhere for status and notifications. So there is an option here to include in home summaries. That's fine. We're good with that. Whatever that is, you can leave it as that. But activity notifications are what you need to toggle on your phone and on your wife's phone. Okay, and I suggest that you sit down and you figure out what it is that you want to do. So to start with, you can choose people. So you can say when I am at home. Now, because there will be more than one person in your home, it may also give you the options for when anyone is at home and when no one is at home. But bear in mind, you cannot have multiple sets of activity notifications. So you may just want to ignore people and leave this on all the time. I've gone for when I am home here, and then time. You tap on the time, you get 4 options. There's anytime, there's during the day, which when I tap on it has a little info bubble. There's at night, again, has an info bubble. And then there's specific times. So at night, if I tap on that gives me the options based on sunset and sunrise. So this is going to change time every single day based on the current time of sunset and sunrise. Now, during the day, again, is based on sunrise and sunset. And then at specific times is exactly what you might think it is. So I could say that, say, between 9 p.m. And then 6 a.m., I am going to get notifications when this sensor detects something. And that's it. Now, The catch is you need to configure this for every sensor that you want on both your phone and your wife's iPhone, because these are not shared activity notifications. They are notifications for you personally. But this is also very good because it means that you can, for example, just have notifications when you're at home, but your wife may want notifications all the time, or vice versa, whatever works for you and your family. But that is what I would personally recommend doing. And HomeKit is a little bit tricky, so I understand if folks haven't found this before. I'd also recommend tap on the ... in the bubble, one of Mikah's favorite buttons. And then there are home settings there up there as well. And then down here, you can see, for example, you can see various different sensors. You can see safety and security, where you can get critical notifications with check-ins and things like that. There's loads of good stuff in there, which can be very, very handy. But I think the most important thing for you will be going and finding those sensors that you want, which there happens to be a handy dandy list right here. And then you can have activity notifications for them, and it will show you all of the things, whether or not there's activity notifications set up for them or not. So that can be very useful. And yes, you can get activity notifications for things like, I've got the Healthy Home Coach in the bedroom, which tells me about air quality and things like that. That sends me notifications too. If the carbon dioxide level is too high, yes, dioxide, then it tells me it's too high so I can open a window. There's loads of good things that you can have through this, but I'm hoping that this is going to give you the information that you need. And if not, you may have to upgrade to something like Home Assistant or similar, which can do a lot more, but that is another level of complexity, which I'd be happy to talk about with folks, but it's definitely a step up from HomeKit.
All right. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of impressive how much Home Assistant is able to do, but it's not quite a topic for iOS today. So understand that. Thank you, Steve and Ron, for your Shortcuts Corner requests. Folks, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode of Clockwise. That's not this podcast. That's going to bring us to the end of this episode of iOS Today. That's what happens when I go on autopilot. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Of course, you can email us with your questions, comments, feedback, concerns. iOS Today at twit.tv is where you go to email us. If you'd like to subscribe to the show, head to twit.tv/iOS. That will get you access to the audio version of this show. If you would like to get the video version of this show, well, you can by joining Club Twit at twit.tv/clubtwit. For just $7 a month, you out there can join the club. And when you do, you gain access to some awesome benefits, including ad-free episodes of all of our shows. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show. Special Club Twit events get published there, as well as access to the members-only Discord server, a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and those of us here at Twit, and video versions of our Club Twit shows, including this very show, iOS Today. So if all of that sounds good to you, well, head to twit.tv/clubtwit to sign up. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow along with what you're doing and stay in touch, where should they go to do so?
Well, the best place is rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to all of the social media, the books, the podcasts, the apps, etc. that I am involved in online. And of course, I'm always hanging out in the Club Twit Discord, where some folks have been asking about some interesting features that we should probably talk about on a future show, Mikah. There's somebody who's looking to limit volume control on their iPad. So we should definitely talk about that soon. Where can folks find you?
If you're looking for me online, you can find me at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you again for another episode of iOS Today very soon. Bye-bye.